morning. If you're listening, this must be Radio Entrepreneurs. And this is Peter Meyerson sitting in for the inimitable Jeffrey Davis. Today we have a great lineup of guests. And we are going to start with Larry Gennari of Gennari and Aronson. He's a lawyer and he has a great story. Hi, Larry.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
So what do we want to talk about today? What do we want to keep talking about?
Let's talk about a topic near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's entrepreneurs and entrepreneurialism. And I'm especially excited to tell you about a new class at Boston College Law School called Project Entrepreneur. And Project Entrepreneur is for law students, and it's based on the premise that we want to help entrepreneurs, help all people be successful. Project Entrepreneur is a student-led business boot camp for entrepreneurs with criminal records, most of whom previously been incarcerated. We did our maiden voyage.
Hopefully not over something entrepreneurial.
Well, it's interesting when you look at the statistics, both in Massachusetts and nationwide. We've had a fourfold increase since the 80s of people who've been incarcerated. The three strikes law has resulted in a substantial number of people being incarcerated. We've got almost, by many accounts, 70 million plus. 1 in 3 people now in the U.S. with a criminal record.
As much as I pay attention to this stuff, I didn't realize the numbers were that dramatic.
It's kind of staggering, Peter. You've got about 2.2, 2.3 million, depending on the stats you look at, people incarcerated every day. You have 11 million people cycling through U.S. jails every year. You've got 600,000 people being released every single year. And all of those folks, and I look at them, so many of them, as budding entrepreneurs, suffer from this challenge of collateral consequences. And the collateral consequences we used to call sort of that scarlet letter. People with criminal records, felony convictions, find it hard to find a job or advance in a job. Some of these collateral consequences are crazy and archaic, particularly when you think about entrepreneurs. In Alabama, you can't qualify to be a therapy dog handler if you have a felony conviction. In Wisconsin, if you have a misdemeanor or a felony record, you can't register to be an interior designer. In Maine, you can't be an animal control officer if you've got a record. In Massachusetts, strangely enough, you are not immediately eligible to be an auctioneer, an embalmer, or an apprentice embalmer, sheet metal worker. So some of them just don't make sense.
Don't make sense at all.
And so for a lot of people, a path to self-employment is a great path. And so that's what we're trying to do at Boston College Law School. The faculty and the dean have been so supportive, not only of helping young business lawyers understand what it is to counsel an entrepreneur. You've got to have empathy, you've got to look around corners, you've got to be thinking about a lot of things. But we're bringing in, and we brought in 10 returning citizens on Monday nights to learn about the basics of creating a business.
So how do you go find these people?
Well, it's interesting. The course is patterned after a separate club called Project Remade at Stanford University. So Project Remade sits between the business school and the law school. And it has graduated over the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years, cohorts of 10 people who go on to create nail salons and weightlifting clubs, all kinds of really cool, thoughtful businesses. And they have a committee. They now have people who are able to refer others in. For me and Boston College Law School, we're starting. So we got referrals from Mayor Marty Walsh's Office of Returning Citizens in Boston. We got a couple of referrals from the aftercare program at MCI Framingham, and the word got out. And it's interesting, and you know this, Peter, from your own experience. The Boston College community is pretty substantial, and I got a number of calls from parole officers, folks who have a master's in social work or something or a connection to Boston College, who said, I've got somebody who you might help. And we were pretty careful and followed the Project Remade pattern for admission to the program. It's a free program.
How do people get admitted?
So they've got to have a business idea. They have to have a day job. They have a place to live. They have to basically be able to take care of themselves. They're going to be clean or in rehab and substance free. And most importantly, they have to have a business idea. Not just generally I want to do something, but I've always had this passion. And so they all sign a basic contract, and that gets them into the now 10-week program, which we're going to do again in the fall.
So what does the 10-week program do for them, and what does it do for your students?
So for the students, it is primarily a law school course in counseling entrepreneurs, which
interesting. Okay.
anyone who's ever counseled an entrepreneur knows it can be a wild ride.
Yep.
And you've got to know a lot, and you got to speak plain English. And that is a challenge I always joke with my law students, we ruin them after the first and second year with too much terminology, too much Latin. And so you really got to learn how to translate choice of entity into, let's think about the best kind of company for you to protect your assets. And so for the 10 weeks, we take the entrepreneurs on a journey. So the first week is really about choosing the right form of company. Then they come in and they talk about intellectual property and protecting their brand. Then they'll come in and talk about employment law, social media, accounting basics, accounting modeling for that. And it culminates in a business pitch. I won't say competition, but a business pitch presentation, which is the last day of class. And I tell people it's not like Shark Tank, it's more like Dolphin Tank. Everyone there is there to help. They are venture folks, they are CEOs, they are nonprofits who want to have an impact on social entrepreneurialism. And so the culmination of the 10-week course is for all the entrepreneurs to have a business pitch, 10 or 12 slides, the last slide of which for our audience is what I could use next, how you can help me. And one of the things I've learned through the inaugural class, and also I'm sure we'll learn again in the fall, is that this innovation community, this entrepreneurial community, is a pretty special one. I asked CEOs, venture folks, angel investors, very successful people of all stripes, to come and spend part of their Monday night sitting with these entrepreneurs and helping shape their business ideas. Not one said no. Many people came 2 and 3 times. And so I think they understand how motivating it can be to help people be successful in these cool businesses.
Oh yeah, I mean, we talked before we went on the air, whether I'd be willing to mentor. And, I think for people like me who are in this space kind of the same way you are, it's a very hopeful process. You're trying to help people and in a very difficult space. And, being an entrepreneur is not something for the faint of heart.
It's not. And that some of this for the entrepreneurs, as it is for the general population, it's sort of self-selection. You really gotta have that. You have to have a drive. But there's some great examples I give them of folks who have had the same barrier that they haven't been successful. Dave's Killer Bread out on the West Coast. Dave Dahl did, I think, 10 or 15 years for manslaughter, and then went back to his family bakery because that's the job he could get. Created a really unique brand of all natural breads, and 7 or 8 years later, I think they sold it to subsidiary General Mills now for $275 million. There's Chef Jeff.
So did he kill his partner? Is that what happened?
That I don't know. I don't think he was a business person at the time. Chef Jeff is a nationally known food personality. Has been on the Food Channel. Did a number of years for trafficking. Con Body is now taking gyms in Manhattan by storm, created by a returning citizen who wanted to help people sort of figure out how to get fit with minimal equipment and a lot of time. So you can do this if you're an entrepreneur. And I always start and end every class the same way, and it's sort of the Boston College ethos that we are all more than the worst thing we've ever done. And everybody should have a chance to do this and not be defined by the worst moments in their life.
I think that's a very wonderful kind of thought. And I almost want to let the interview end on that note because it's so high, but I'm not going to. So where do you go from here? I mean, you've had one class, and how many people were in that class? How many former
So returning
convicts.
citizens, we had 10 returning citizens. And my
I
hope is to-
hesitated over that. That's what you call them, returning
yeah,
citizens?
a lot of folks hesitate over that, and it works for so many reasons. We really have to do kind of a top-down review, and I'm not a criminal lawyer. I really don't go to court. It's not what I do, but I read a lot, and I read a lot about social justice and economic justice. There's a terrific book. Professor Michael Honey's written a really thoughtful, provocative book about another way of thinking about Martin Luther King and his fight for economic justice. And that was so important, not just social justice, but he knew that the key to what he called sort of the arc of justice is the arc of the. I'm trying to remember the quote exactly. The arc of justice is long and it bends toward justice. The moral arc is long and it bends toward justice. I'm sorry, I'm massacring the quote. But he really...
You're very close.
he really thought a lot about economic justice. And in fact, when he was killed in Memphis, he was there for a sanitation workers strike, really trying to help people pull themselves up and be successful. So it's a key to so many things in this country. So where do we go next? I think we try to expand this class. I'd love to bring it to other venues. I know that there are other leaders locally. At MIT, there's an Educational Justice Alliance. Lee Perlman and Carol Cafferty there are doing amazing work. BU has been in this space for a long, long time. The universities are leading the way. Wesleyan down in Connecticut has had a long-standing tradition of helping people return to their communities. So I think we've got to give great thought to how we do that. And also for us as entrepreneurial lawyers and people in the innovation community, there's another way to think about this. I have in my head this concept of some sort of social venture fund, because what I'm trying to figure out is, what do we do with these folks after they've been through this program? They get a certificate of completion that has Boston College at the top. What do they do next? Well, maybe they incorporate their business, but they don't have the means. So if we think of something like a Second Chance Ventures and really frame it that way and find a way to help people find programs that can help them next. Other incubators, other accelerators, maybe find that $500 to incorporate. Maybe find that $1,000 to get the food truck permits that they need in a bunch of different places. Or that $300 to get the master barber's license. Whatever it takes. I think that's really what's next. And along the way, we try to introduce as many people from our community as possible. Because it isn't just the fundamental learning. It isn't just the money. It's the community, it's the human capital. It's us. We have to connect to these people.
You know, Larry, it's a wonderful story. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
So thank you for asking. I would recommend that people go to the website. It's galawpartners.com. My contact info is on there. And I recommend that people drop me a note, any note, even if it's a great article that you saw. I'm learning. We're all learning in this space. And these folks really need a lot of support. Let's bring down some more of these barriers for these returning citizens and integrate them into our community and help them create businesses and therefore solve a whole lot of problems, theirs and the communities, and maybe we'll make a difference in this increasingly divided world. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who always said, you brighten your corner. So we all need to do that. Yeah,
no, it's great. That was a really wonderful interview, Larry, and I hope people call you. This is Radio Entrepreneurs, and we will be back after the next break.